This is exciting. So, I'm going to soon switch off our faces here and show you a bunch of slides. Meg and I are going to walk you through a whole bunch. We hope that it's going to be more like a dialogue and less like a presentation, but I do have 20 slides because I can tend to be a little wordy.
Hold on, really I'm going to just interrupt you real fast, Catie, because it's such great content, but I want folks to know. So my name is Michelle Lavelle. This is a wonderful opportunity for Catie and Meg to join us tonight. They are such awesome people and brilliant homeschoolers. I have been just so eager to have Meg and Catie share this with us for like a year. Catie started talking about her mom school program and how awesome it's been at some of the different HEAC meetings, which is the Home Education Advisory Council. And I've just been eager to learn more about it myself and share this incredible experience you guys have developed. And the timing could not be more perfect. We're seeing so much interest in pods and groups and small groups and families who are either new to homeschooling or a little reluctant to take this on themselves. So this is a perfect opportunity. Timing could not be any better. And I really want to thank both you, Meg and Catie, for doing this tonight. This is going to be great. And I haven't even flipped through all the handouts yet, but I'm just really thrilled to be able to do this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you for organizing this. This is pretty exciting because I hope throughout what we do tonight, you'll be able to hear some of how Meg and I have been a part of a mom school, which I'm going to talk about what that name means and how we might want to call it other names, but where there is a reason why we call it that. I'll explain that. And then kind of how it compares, how it's similar and how it's different to a typical co-op or a pod school, maybe like a Prenda type pod school, a private school, a public school, and then just plain old doing homeschooling on your own at home. And we'll kind of talk about even the ways you can mesh some of those. So hopefully by the end of this evening, you'll feel like pretty equipped and have some tools in your hands and like feel like you can get started. So we're hoping to give you some really practical tips towards the end. Okay, should I start my slides now, Michelle?
Yeah, go right for it.
All right. 1 second, everybody. Okay, hang on. Here's my keynote. Okay, can everybody see this? Mom school.
Looks good.
All right. Okay. Okay, so we'll give you a little history. We'll tell you how it's similar and different. And then by the end, we hope to give you some ideas for how you can get started. Meg, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yes. So, go to the next slide where it's my picture.
That should be your picture. You don't see it?
Oh, really? Oh, hang on. No.
We have the where are we going tonight?
Yeah. Oh, there it is.
There's Meg.
La la.
Okay.
There's me. Yeah, that's me like one chin ago. Anyway, I went to UNH, and when I was at UNH as a student, I fell in with a lot of homeschooling families. At that time in Durham, they had probably about 10 years before started Seacoast Christian Home Educators, which is now Christian Home Educators of New Hampshire and Southern Maine. And so there were a lot of homeschoolers, and I fell in with them as a single person because I was available. So my first experience with a mom school was as a 20-year-old, I taught middle school nonfiction writing to a class of 6 boys at a mom school meeting. And when I asked them for different types of nonfiction writing, one of them said graffiti and another one said bomb threats. And I thought, okay, here we go, some homeschooling, and I'm teaching some writing, so that's exciting. And had always hoped to homeschool if I ever got married and had children. You know, you always think you're going to be a spinster and then you're not. And so I'm really glad to be homeschooling. And this year, for the first time, my husband's going to be teaching at mom school. So he's beside himself excited about it. So that's a little bit about me.
Thank you. And for me, I've got 5 kids. I went to the Air Force Academy for college, and it's where I met my husband. We were both in the Air Force and moved around for a while. And we moved to New Hampshire, and my daughter was ready to enter kindergarten, and we made the big, bold, gutsy and nerve-wracking decision to homeschool our oldest, and just committed to taking it year by year. Back then there wasn't really Facebook. It took a while to find friends and get connected, but that's part of the story here. You'll see here. Once I did find that there was some amazing mom schools happening on the Seacoast, I never looked back, and I felt like every year that's what made our school year awesome for my kids, and it's what helped me hold it all together. On this side, I work with dogs, with puppies, training puppies primarily along with my kids. So I think sometimes people say, oh, I'm sure if you homeschool, you can't work, but I definitely work part-time, and sometimes it's full-time, and I wrangle my kids in to help me. So there's that. All right, so a little mom school history. In the Hampton area,
wait, you have to switch. Sorry, you have to switch the slide. I wonder if it's on an auto thing. Is it on an auto? Oh, there you go. You're good.
It's on. Okay. Maybe it just wants me to push the button twice every time. All right. Well, so I think it was about over 20 years ago that some moms in the Hampton area decided to homeschool. And of course, back then, homeschooling was probably like 1% of the student population in New Hampshire. And what they were doing was they were having groups of kids over to their houses, and they were hosting classes at kitchen tables and in living rooms. And I think that they loved it, and their kids became great friends, and that's what they kept doing. And that's what some of those moms are still doing. I got to know some of them, and when my daughter was in 3rd grade, she joined one of their literature classes. Literature and science and writing were really, really popular ones for many years with this particular group of moms. They also did some 4-H, and they did some PE, particularly like physical games together. And of course, they coordinated some of their social activities and extracurricular activities together, but for classes, literature, science, and writing. Well, as homeschooling was starting to grow in popularity, we found that we were outgrowing some of these living rooms and kitchen tables. So we found other moms who were willing to host. And before you know it, we had multiple minivans going back and forth between different homes, and kids would all pile out, and pile in, and switch to different locations. And they got their mom schooling in that way. But we didn't call it mom school. We didn't really know we didn't have a name for what we were doing, but we knew it was different than a co-op, and obviously quite different than a regular school. So I came across this article by Rachel DeMille, and there is a link that we can post later. Her husband is the author of Thomas Jefferson Education, and they got some great philosophies, and she just wrote this really inspiring article saying, I think this is what's going to take off, and I think this is what so many families want. I printed the article, I took it to my next homeschool support meeting, and I said, guys, I think this is what we're doing, and do you see how this is different? And do you see why I think a lot of what we're doing is working so well? So let's make sure we understand why it's different, why it's working well, and let's make sure we can preserve that and keep that going. And so to this day, we have mom school still going very successfully. It's not perfect, and it's not for everyone. I will be the first to say that. But there's some major benefits. And so throughout this presentation, I hope you'll kind of see, well, what is the investment required? What are the risks? How is it different? How could it work for me? And how maybe in the end, how would it not work for my family? Every family is different. So, but in the end, so we have in our area, just on the Seacoast here, every year kids are graduating. They're going to college, they're going to a trade school. They're equipped to be on the road that they wanted to be on. And I think largely we attribute that to being friends with other moms who are leading classes. And it's proud to say COVID did not stop us. We ended up with some classes on Zoom, but even when we had our location taken away, we were able to manage. And I think that was only possible because of the level of flexibility that mom school gives, which it can be a much higher level of flexibility than, for example, like a larger co-op. Okay, so I'm gonna go to the next slide. Meg, would you like to speak to this a little bit?
Yes, hit it twice though.
There?
Yep. Yes.
What families really want, what families don't want?
Yep, and then I think the next slide has some of the bullet points.
Oh, I took those off.
Oh, you did?
Sorry.
Oh, it's totally fine. No, so basically, we put the want right in the beginning because different families want and need different things for their homeschool. And this can cause anxiety for a lot of homeschool parents because we get into the comparison trap, comparing our kids to our friends' kids, or one co-op to another, one curriculum to another. And there's this temptation to feel like there's the best homeschool thing is around the corner, and we're missing it. And so to kind of go around that, it's really helpful to figure out what you want and don't want out of a homeschooling collaborative experience. Like a mom school, one of the things that families who are in a mom school really want is freedom, flexibility, friendships. They don't all start with F. We want the chance to give our children a personalized educational experience that can differ from year to year. So one year, like we've always had literature classes is one of the classes, but then this year we realized that, especially for our middle grade students, like middle school, junior high, they really could use an extra year of writing practice. And so we're integrating literature with the writing course, and we might not do that next year. So that's just one example of just wanting something that's flexible and meets the needs of our families and our students at any given particular time. So what families don't want, that can drive some families absolutely crazy. They're like, no, I need there to always be literature. And, so mom school flexibility might really be bad, not like bad evil, but it just might not work. And it's really important with a mom school to understand that your mileage may vary. What's going to be amazing for one family is not going to be amazing for you. And that's perfectly okay. And you don't need to compare, and you don't need to fear that you're missing out on the best thing, because you're not. Because if you really need something, it's going to come your way, or you'll go out and grab it. So yes, this is a great slide too. So this is a comparison of a lot of the things, and the things that are in green, are kind of things that Catie and I really enjoy. And so, for example, how hard on the wallet? We like it to be zero, frankly. And so one of the things about mom school is that there is sometimes a minimal fee for class materials, but we do not charge each other for taking the class. I think that is probably one of the most standout things that a mom school does, that we're not charging each other for the product of our labor. And some of it is more labor intensive than others, to be honest. And so we share the workload, but we also know that because we're not charging each other, it almost raises the level of integrity of the group, because we know that everyone is trying to bless one another. And so no one takes advantage of that. I suppose that goes contrary to a lot of advice saying if you're not in financially, you don't have a lot of commitment. But with a mom school, we found that not to be true, because you're committed for that year. And you know what? If you have a surprise pregnancy and you need to drop out. We're not going to judge you. Someone will bring your kid. It's going to be fine, or not bring your kid. Like, there's so much flexibility, but you do not have to worry about thousands of dollars down the drain, or, oh my gosh, I spent $800 on this AP class and it's not right for our family. So that's a really, I think, good thing. But other families might be like, no way, I'm paying $1,000 and here's the list of things I'm getting out of it. And that gives them peace. So whatever gives you peace, that's what you should do.
Yeah, so this is a super busy chart, and I kind of apologize for how wordy it is. But what I chose to do here was highlight in green what I think over on the right on the mom school column. You can see in green what I and Meg love the most about mom school. We love that it's high flexibility. Parents have a high say in things. Our commitment can vary, just depends on what's being offered and what we commit to. There's not strict grade levels. As you move down, you see the one that's kind of in green and red, administration and decision making. I actually put that partially in red because red meaning people often don't like that. It's something that we end up doing on our own, and moms have to be very involved. Moms, dads, parents, uncles, whoever's leading, you end up making those decisions. For some people, that is something they do not want to be a part of. So I think for some people, they see that as freeing and wonderful, and they'll take that on. And for other people, they don't want to ever, take lead or take charge. So that can be an area that's tough. But I will say that when you have a great mom school going, and you have, see down at the very, very bottom right, very, very high levels of interpersonal trust. And when you have strong relationships being built, you get to play off of who's got talents here, who's got some weaknesses or needs some help here. And you just are always adjusting and lifting each other up where they need it, boosting each other up where they need it. And then those who are naturally willing to make those decisions for leading a class or for choosing where it's going to be or any of those decisions. Some people don't want to do that. And so, sometimes you have a mom school group where not everybody's teaching, not everybody's leading, but they are doing something else that is a better fit for them. So let's just go ahead and move on. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say, so one example of that might be the first year that, so the other thing about mom school, the way that we happen to run it in Hampton Falls is that you as the mom teaching the class can invite the kids that you want into your class. And yeah, it does work out that we pretty much all have each other's kids in class, but there's the occasional kid who just wants to take one class, and that's totally fine. And we're really good about not assuming that every kid that there'll be space for every kid in every class. So you could think that that could be like really cliquish and terrible, and it is not. It is not at all like hard feelings or anything, because that expectation is clearly communicated right up front, and no one like hush-hushes about it or anything. It's just right in there. It's just one of the things we do. So that with that flexibility, one of the things that I did my first year, I had a child in mom school. I had been invited to one class. So we came in for that one class and then we left. And I wasn't involved like with the mom school because I was just there for one class. And then I asked if there was any way I could help. And I had a friend who was teaching a higher grade literature class. And she said, "Oh, I know that you like writing. Do you want to grade these tests for me and grade these papers?" And I was like, "Great, sure." So I wasn't teaching a class, but there was a need for paper grading. So I did that. And it was really fun and simple. And other moms work in the nursery if there happens to be one that year. Sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't. So it really can vary, and you get to create it.
Amen. Yeah. We'll go to the next slide, and I'll go through some of the most positive traits that we consider for mom school. And at the top here, can you see my slide?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay. I said, ignore the name mom school. So that name mom school came from this article that I read. But honestly, every time I say it, I think it's just not the right word. We need to come up with a better word. Tribe school, maybe it's a tribal school, a friendship-based school, or PDE, which stands for parent-directed education. There's another word for you. So just, I hope nobody gets hung up on that, because I know we live in a day and age where moms and dads often are both working, and dads have great things they can contribute. So I'm not being sexist by saying mom school. I hope you all know that. It can be anyone. You can even get together with moms and hire a teacher, or you can have a retired teacher, or you could have grandma or grandpa come in. We have seen all of those things. I will say typically what we have seen is moms leading, but it is certainly not all the time. So I just want to explain that that's the name, and I think there's a little weakness in the name. But here's some of the other positive traits of mom school. Okay. And honestly, some of you could think that this doesn't sound like you, and some of these aren't positive. Like the first one, it's built organically via natural trust and communications within relationships. For some people, especially if you have like higher level of social anxiety, or you just struggle with friendships, I think this can be hard. I'm going to give you some tips as we get towards the end. But I think that we as parents, you know, parenting magnifies our struggles and our weaknesses, of course, all the time. And we don't want our struggles and weaknesses to burden our children or to hinder their growth and their education. So relationships, they can be messy, right? And they can be difficult and they can take a longer time to build. Those are things that can be difficult. I have that on the next slide, but the relationships can be wonderful as well. Next, it flows out of a mom's desire. So there's no coercion on what to do. So in a typical, definitely a public school or private school, maybe a co-op, depending on how big it is, they're gonna have the higher level administration people saying, well, we need this class offered to this age group of kids. So where's my math teacher? Where's my science teacher? And they're looking for people to come in and fill it. And oftentimes it's like asking someone to, you know, fit in something that they don't want to do or they're not able to do, but then they'll do it because, well, oh, there's no one else to do it. When we look at our mom school and we get to start planning the next year, we start by saying, what do I have an interest in, joy in? What do I have a vision for? What could be a natural outflow of my creativity that I could pass on to others? Or, and it might be, where do I see a need? But you come to it from a place of, this is what I want to do. And this is what I think would be a blessing to so many. And this is what I can envision. Instead of someone at a higher level saying, we really, really need somebody for this. I hope that makes sense. But I think that's a huge point to be made. And in our mom school, if we had a year where we didn't have a math teacher, for example, no problem. Actually, most of the time we have not had many math groups. It's no problem. Everybody either does that on their own at home or they go through an online class or VLAX or another option to fulfill that need for that subject. Okay.
So this is where I would jump in and say that the mom school does not, our particular mom school does not do all of your subjects. There are many subjects that we all do at home. Mom school is whatever classes we want to run that year. So we might have, like from the first slide, there might be literature, science, and writing, which means that you are going to do history, math, and all the electives at home, and you're in a regular homeschool. So this is just like a one day a week kind of thing. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. And then the last bullet point says, you offer things and you take people up on offers. So this is not a situation usually where you're seeing a lot of contracts and a lot of papers to sign. It's a free will exchange, which sadly, it's not really, some people are really not comfortable with. It's not a huge part of our culture anymore, but it can very much work. It has to work within those friendships and relationships. And that can be where things either get messy and they don't work, or you can keep working to build them and ultimately be better off because of that. So let me go on to the next slide, which shows what some people would maybe consider not such great traits of a mom school. Can you see this slide?
Not yet.
Yeah, let's go back and hit it again. How about that?
Yep.
I see it. Year to year,
Yes.
Not the same. Do you see that?
Yep.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah. So Meg mentioned this a little bit. We don't try to make ourselves fit into the mold of a big co-op or a private school and offer everything to everyone. We know that every year things are going to be different and moms are going to want to offer different things. And there's only so many of us. So we offer what we want. So for some people, that's tough. We do try to make our plans starting in March, the year before. And we start throwing out ideas, but year to year, you're going to see things are different. So that might not work for some families. For other families, they love that and they embrace it. And they know, like what I said before, if something's not offered, you can go find that in the marketplace somewhere else. Okay. And then the decision-making, communication, and often some direct involvement like teaching is heavier, too much of a heavy load for some parents. And then of course, I've said this quite a few times, your relationships take time and they take effort and they're not always pretty. So there's that. Let's go ahead and go on. Ned, would you like to speak to this slide, the key tenets?
Yeah, so this is mom is in charge, or as Catie mentioned, dad or grandma or a homeschool dad, 3 towns away, whatever, just saying things that we're having this year. So the mom runs the class and calls the shots, which I mentioned briefly before. So for example, I'm doing middle school writing this year. And I think I have like 18 kids in my class because I said yes to everybody, because I know that with a couple of mom helpers in the room, we can split into smaller groups. We can do all kinds of things. We're building on, most of the kids were in the class last year. We're doing a very similar curriculum and it's building on what we did last year. So I thought the more the merrier. Some classes, because of space or limitations with materials, can only have like 15 or under kids. Some classes have 5 kids, but you as the mom get to figure that out and run your class however you want it. So in the who, what, when, where, why, and how, a way to start a mom school is maybe get 2 or 3 friends who have different gifts than you, different educational interests and abilities, and offer what you can do and ask if just 2 or 3 families want to do it in the house that has the biggest living room or whatever. You are working together, having a sub, having a backup plan, but there's no corporate agenda over you. So you design and direct all of the things. And again, that might sound intimidating. To some people, they might want a list of how-tos from, or a vision statement from a higher up or an educational organization. That might really work for you. And it works for so many. And we're definitely not dissing on it. We're just saying that we like it when we can call this shots. And it's not like we're control freaks either. Totally not. Like I'm not a type A, I'm like a type B- person. A lot of my friends are type A and we work really well together. Everybody has different gifts. Everybody's gifts are important and we could not do this without each other. So the who and the where and the why and the how look different from year to year, and that's okay. It's designed that way. It does look pretty similar though. You're going to gather on one day. There's going to be kids in your class. What you're going to be teaching. And I think that the why is often the most overlooked, but kind of one of the most important ones. And that is because you love your kids and you want, the very best homeschooling experience for them. And we just have found so many wonderful blessings with Mom School that all of the other things, the what and the when and the where, and the who seem to be more administrative and just kind of hammering out details. But the why is because it's so fun and it's so rewarding. And it's great that we have the freedom to do this and that it looks different from year to year and that everybody has a different testimony of how Mom School really helped their kid. And yeah, so that's it.
I had a question for both of you.
Yeah.
So when the last 2 slides, you talk about some of the administrative stuff, the what and how. So could the Mom School group pick a particular curriculum and just go through it together with one parent being the facilitator, or they all sign up for the same online class and either do it together in real time and work through the homework as a study group? So could you use these outside sources within the Mom School structure? Or or can it also include things that you devise on your own?
Yes to all. So we have an example of classes that are envisioned and created and directed by the parent, like making up their own curriculum. We have parents using one particular curriculum and like all the students are doing the same thing. And we have students taking like the same dual enrollment class together online at the same time and getting together for study groups. So it can really be whatever you want.
Awesome. Sounds like it really does have that flexibility. It's a matter of, collectively within your group of a few people deciding we want to work on this together.
Mhm.
And that can be anything.
Yeah, Michelle, really good question there. We haven't done this, but I know that some homeschool curriculums are creating the once a week get together for their multi-group families. For example, My Father's World, it is a Christian program. They assume all the families are going to try to stay on the same week of the school year together. So they're going to do a lot of the material at home. And then once a week, they're going to get together, and the curriculum has created pretty much a step-by-step. Here's what you guys are going to do when you get together. You're going to do this science experiment, and you're going to do this history activity. And if you can do this art project, again, those are things that often people don't want to do on their own at home, because it can be hard and messy to do science experiments. So, hey, why don't somebody just step up and say, I'll sacrifice my kitchen or my yard for this.
For one day,
one day we'll get it all done. And so I'm hoping more and more curriculum providers will provide that, because that can be an awesome thing to do. Yeah. So let's go on. I'm going to skip a couple of slides because we've talked about a lot. I don't really want to talk too much about how we're so different than a co-op, because I think that the lines can be blurred. And now we're seeing families do these pods. And I'd say we don't always look a lot different than a pod. It kind of just depends on how the co-op and how the pod and how the mom school are structured. Major differences is just that I think mom school is typically going to be lower cost, because we're not typically charging for labor. And one of the reasons there is because of your use of space. So that's one of my last slides, but I will talk about finding a location. And when you don't charge, that can be a good thing there. But so usually we're in invite only. So sometimes a co-op or a private school or something, they're like, well, come one, come all. I would say we're a little bit more like invite only, because it's relationship based. We want to know you before we commit to working with you. So I kind of think that sounds a little more normal. I've always kind of thought that, public school is a little, it's just kind of a new thing, relatively speaking, that you would send your child away from home for more than half of their waking hours and be taught and led by strangers. Some are not always strangers, of course, but it just seems to me, it always seemed a little funny. So in a mom school, you typically know them, or you want to know them before you make that commitment, because then you can be more sure that it's gonna work well. So let's just go ahead and go on to this. Let's talk a little bit, Meg. Let's steer towards where we're giving people some more ideas of what to do. And so I'll start here with elementary school. In my experience, I've seen when your elementary school kids are getting together for mom school, you don't need to all be on the same curriculum. Kids are just sponges and they're absorbing things. And so if you're not all studying the Middle Ages that year, that's okay. You can still do any old science experiment, and you can go through the scientific method together. You can do any old art project that some mom has a passion for, or they want to teach some aspect of a particular famous artist. And of course, everyone loves to get together for like PE games. So that's what we have found. It can be what you'd call a little more social and a little more supplementary than core classes. However, we'll say I have seen very successful literature and reading groups at the young age. And then here's a tip here, include eating. So kids are naturally social together. They want to talk and meet each other when they're young. So if you can have everybody sit around that kitchen table or on a blanket in the backyard or wherever you've decided to meet up, the kids get to know each other just by eating lunch or eating a snack together.
Yeah.
We also found that kids being the best buddies when they're young, it really doesn't matter. It's a little bit more about the parents knowing each other and trusting each other and being friends. Okay, and Meg, will you talk a little bit about how we change things once we get to middle school and beyond?
So middle school and beyond is the idea there that our particular mom school has is we have children who go on to college, and we have children who go on to trades, and we have children who go on to the military. And we love all of those things. And we have children who go right into the workforce, like whatever. We want to give them a high school education that will give them the most options that they can possibly have. And so our particular mom school does focus on some core academic classes when you get to junior high level, like writing, literature discussion, science. There's actually some math classes this year. We often use high school mom school to get in high school electives. So for example, in the last 2 years, we've had study skills, career planning. We're having constitutional literacy this year. There's been, health classes in the past, like all those side electives that high schoolers need. It's really fun to get them with a group. We also do see it as like, instead of like a learning curve, like, wee, there goes your kid into high school. Focusing on academics in middle school gives them more like of a ramp experience. So for example, like writing in elementary school is book reports. In middle school, it's more like a critique, like I know the parts of a story or an article. And then in high school, it's analysis. And so we don't want them to be like cold water in the face. Oh no, I have to write a literary analysis paper freshman year. We want them to be used to writing and know what they're doing and be like, oh yeah, this is just one little step more than what I was doing last year, so that they're ramping up to higher level work. And it's also really good for middle school and high school. It's a safe place for students to learn accountability for turning their stuff in on time, to being responsible to another teacher that's not their mom, who will have to, sometimes we use Power School, or you can use Google Docs or some other kind of online Blackboardy type thing to organize classes, because any student who takes a dual enrollment class or anything online for college, or even in college, is going to have to learn how to navigate that and be part of discussion groups online. So we also, opportunities are available for high schoolers to be teaching assistants for lower grades, which I think is amazing. And really fun. And Catie's daughter Tori did it, and she was amazing. She totally rocked it last year, teaching middle schoolers writing, and it was just delightful. So
yeah. Okay, we'll go on to the next. I'll skip this one because we talked about this a lot. Okay, so getting into a little bit more of this nitty gritty here. I've got a couple slides for you. First, I think you just got to brainstorm. You got to connect. You probably all know some people who are homeschooling, but we have so many new homeschoolers in our state. I think we doubled. And gosh, we don't want anybody out there feeling like they are on an island, because it's not good for your kids and it's not good for you. Even if you say, well, I'm an introvert, because I'll tell you, I can be an introvert myself. But when you have nurturing relationships, it's like the best thing ever. So you want to find your tribe. I think they're out there. So my first step here was brainstorm a list. And I got this idea thinking of, I'm sure you guys know about like network marketing. If you join a network marketing company, they say, think of everyone you know and don't cross anybody off your list. Just write everybody down who comes to mind. So think about other moms who are homeschooling. Think about moms who might know other homeschoolers who you can talk to. And then you might want to go ahead and just advertise yourself. I put that in quotes because I think that sounds a little weird, to advertise yourself. But I did this once, and it helped tremendously. Somebody said, oh, I think you would like so-and-so. Let me give you their number. And this was like not before Facebook, but before Facebook was really popular. And so, and wham, my daughter met one of her best friends who she's been friends with for 12 years, all the way through high school. So advertise yourself. And I would even say those hush-hush topics about your family priorities, what your faith is, or your religion and your political views. I actually think if you're willing to put those out there, maybe you don't put those out on a public a public place for people to view, but you quickly get to those, I think that you're more likely to have that strong, lasting connection with another family if you just kind of put that out there.
I want to add that this is the function that Granite State Home Educators works really hard to enable and make happen. So yes, we do rely pretty heavily on Facebook, but we have multiple Facebook groups so people can plug in where they want. In fact, we have 7 social media groups that we help manage to help people find each other, find that tribe that you talk about, ladies, and bring people together, whether it's for events, like we have moms hosting things at various beaches or playgrounds or hikes or whatever. Granite State Home Educators is also working on our not back to school events for the year, so that this time it's going to be regional so that people can plug in more locally as well as in a big group setting. But it comes down to making the effort to get out there. A few days ago, I even posted some activities, 100 different ideas you could do in a group to kind of break the ice and get to know each other. So, yes, you kind of have to get out of your own shell a little bit and meet people. And we try to help make that happen. And that's what can open the door for these sorts of mom school opportunities, small groups. It could even be, if you're a little hesitant to take on the full academic stuff of it, even periodic field trips together. Just that alone gives you a connection and some structure, and then you're not alone, and it gives you the opportunity to make friends in the process. So I think that's a real important part of the mix that Granite State Home Educators tries to bring to facilitate people coming together.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Michelle. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying, bringing your kids in on the idea and planning works really well for the little thing that's above that, where it says start small and with smaller commitment, but more than just a playground meetup. The kids they love being asked what they want to do, and they're still going to have to do math. Sorry, math is going to exist, but I asked my high schooler, is there anything on your list this year that you don't see that you would like to see? She said home ec. I was like, really? Okay. So we're going to learn. I taught her how to can the other day, and we're going to learn how to bake bread and do all the home ec things. And I never would have thought that this kid was hankering to learn how to make bread, but lo and behold. So it's really great to bring your kids on the ideas and the planning, and start it out by saying, I'm not going to necessarily do all of your ideas, but let's brainstorm together. And that's really, really helpful, because it helps them to see that you homeschool as a family and everybody gets to participate.
Yes. And then you see that last quote. This is, ask not what you can do for your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. So I think the spirit of that is so important in mom school. It's not, well, what do I get out of this? Right. Where can I drop my kids off? Where can it be free? Where can I find a place that's perfect for my work schedule and my family and won't be too hard? All of those things, we're always looking for the perfect thing. And there's no perfect educational route. There's always pluses and minuses to everything. But for mom school, I think you do have to keep the spirit of saying, wow, well, what can I do? What can I offer? Oh, should I bring some other kids on this one thing that I'm doing that's working really well? Instead of saying, well, what's out there for me? So let's go to the next slide. I got a few more other ideas. Meg, would you like to talk about some of these things that we've really liked?
Yes. So in the lower left-hand corner, you'll see some literature guides. We early on in the literature classes, we really enjoyed Progeny Press, but there's a lot, so many educational choices. If you missed the GSHE book sale this year, there were 6,000 homeschool items for sale. We sold about a little over half of it. So don't get intimidated. Find one thing you like and use it. It's going to be fine. Above it, the homeschool physical education game book and others like it. Often you can use books that are geared towards small groups or youth groups that have great games, great icebreakers. things that you can do with 6 kids or 60 kids. They really have sections for that. In the middle, it says homeschoolsciencetools.com. That it's often where you can get like lab kits and things. And then let's see, on the upper right is IEW, just Institute for Excellence in Writing. And like, honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not the biggest fan of IEW, but holy cats, it gets the job done. Let me tell you, like my kids like didn't write a thing, and then they took like 1 semester of IEW with Catie's daughter Tori, and all of a sudden they like can write a paragraph. I'm like, where was this all my life? Oh yeah, I wasn't using it because I didn't think I liked it, but now I like it. And now I'm teaching it this fall. So, you know, never say never, never say never. Eat your hat, sort of thing. But then underneath, I just want to say again, Power School, Google Drive, Zoom, we do not want our kids on screens all day. However, as they get into high school, especially, learning how to navigate some of the school-based platforms is going to be really critical for them to organize their schedules, organize their homework, learn how to find things, learn how to communicate with their teachers, not you communicating with your teachers, but they're communicating with their teachers. Oftentimes it is required to have a couple of posts on a discussion in a class. And so we do try to implement these kind of things to teach them the kind of responsibility that they will need when they're on their own.
Meg,
Yeah.
Meg, can you repeat what that stands for? IEW?
So the IEW, it's Institute for Excellence in Writing. And there's a little, in the picture, it's also Fix It Grammar. So it's got like a grammar course that uses the same lingo as the writing course. And you can do, it's a video thing, but they also have like standalone books. So yeah, it's pretty popular, but a lot of people like it. A lot of people use it. Again, I didn't really love it, but then it worked. So what are you gonna do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then I put face groups on there, not really for kids, but for parents for communicating. So, you know, you can use email, you can use text, which our group does a lot of. It can get a little overwhelming, but something else you can do is do a Facebook group for your group. But if you're like a lot of people, you're a member of like 100 Facebook groups. So you just need to go into your settings and make sure that you're saying, this is a top 10 of my groups. This mom school group is in my top 10 of all my Facebook groups. And I want to make sure I'm seeing everything that's getting posted there.
Some people just aren't on Facebook. So it's not ideal for organization, but yeah, it is.
It can work. Yeah. So I think this might be a good time, Michelle, if you've gotten any questions from people on some of our favorite materials or types of classes that we've had. Meg and I could field those questions now.
We didn't, but I would absolutely say, what other resources have you found to be favorites for some of these, particularly the course things, whether it's math or writing or literature, science? What other sources would you absolutely recommend?
Okay, well, for art, and I have never liked art. This just shows to show you do not have to be an expert in what you're teaching, and you do not have to be a credentialed teacher, because I was just an Air Force officer, so I can definitely teach how to do good push-ups. But I have never liked art, but I was able to teach art through something called Meet the Masters. And Meet the Masters was very inexpensive to buy as a group, and I got kids together around somebody's card table that we popped up in somebody's, family room. And we were able to go through slides and videos. And as long as I went to the store and got the materials we needed, we were able to learn art. And Meet the Masters, what it does is it's teaching you 3 parts. First, it's teaching you about a famous artist. Then it's teaching you a new art technique. And then third, you apply that technique for your own creation. So it's very guided. Like I said, very inexpensive. And I always love when you're kind of learning from the best, so to speak, like you're learning the famous people. And along those same lines, whenever we've done literature, we have tried to focus on what would typically be considered a classic book. So to find lists of different classic books, Progeny Press, that's got a Christian flair to it in some of the questions, but there are book lists everywhere. But classics have been what our group has almost always done. Other favorites.
That doesn't require curriculum necessarily. It just requires, either a downloaded book or something from the library, or then, between Project Gutenberg, you can really access just about any classic book these days.
Yeah, and actually,
literature classes have been one of the classes in which we haven't used a particularly packaged curriculum. We've just had a list of classics that we read, and the instructor has, they teach about, the time period that that book was written in, and just different literary terms and analysis, and then some tests about, the classic literature, and then writing essays about it, group discussion. So it's not so much a packaged curriculum as it is just reading the classics.
Yeah, and if you just buy a study guide, like if you buy a study guide from Progeny Press, if the teacher buys it for about $18, they are actually allowed to send it to everybody who's in their class. So it's pretty low cost. And then we just have the kids buy the book and we say, okay, next week we're discussing chapters 5 through 8. And your study guide has a few pages for you to fill out, and then you'll spend an hour the next week discussing those chapters and going through those questions. And that can be literature can be really fun because kids have a lot of ideas and opinions. And I think it can be one of those things that's easy to teach, or on the easier side to teach, because you've got that study guide and you can do a lot of searching online to find more about that particular book. And then you just want to, as the kids get older, especially, really weave in historical context, if there is any, what was the author's intention in writing, what's the author's background, what's the plot, what's the resolution, all of those elements of a story. But those, it can work. And we've done literature groups in very large groups. And once you get above like 15 or so, it's hard for everybody to really participate. So then you sometimes split up into small groups to do your discussion. Yeah.
We've also used, people really enjoy Apologia, which is, again, it's a Christian curriculum first, mostly science, although they do have one American literature class that's really great. And it's kind of set up where you can do most of it at home. And when you get together for mom school, you will kind of just do an overview of the chapter and do the lab together, which students really like that. So it can be as simple as that, or it can be a little more formal, like in high school. It's no joke. You're doing the tests together and studying and study skills and all that kind of thing. We've also done, Catie did economics in a box, which was fantastic, with a small group of kids who loved economics. Yeah, kids loved economics. They did. And it was really awesome. So those are some of the curriculum.
Yeah, I've even taught a math group. I taught Algebra 1 for a year, and I taught Algebra 2 for a year. And then this coming year, I'm going to teach Algebra 1 again. And I'm not a math whiz. Yes, I did it, but that was over 20 years ago. So what I'm doing is I'm just carefully selecting a curriculum that really I enjoy and that will speak to me clearly. And then that I also think will work with the kids. And then I'm using videos. I found a curriculum that has some little 8-minute videos that goes with each lesson. So the kids will watch the videos together. And of course, I'll make sure I do some prep work and I understand it enough. But I'm also bringing in a high schooler to be my assistant. So, there's so many ways you can look at doing it, and so many resources you can pull into beef up your arsenal of knowledge and ability to do something. So really, like the sky's the limit.
Yeah. And you're not locked into anything. So if you use one curriculum one year and nobody really liked it, don't use it again. You're not locked in. And remember, just like, you're starting small with maybe just 2 or 3 friend groups and their kids. And, the stakes are pretty low because you are making all the decisions. So just pick the thing you like the best. And if it works, keep using it.
That is so true. If it works, keep using it. Let's jump over to this one over here. So let's say you get invited to a tribe school. Hey, I switched the name from homeschool to tribe school. Some key aspects besides something I mentioned earlier, which is just make sure you guys get along, that you have agreement on kind of a worldview, and that you have a high level of trust. But here's another thing to remember: let your yes be yes, let your no be no. So really be honest when you're assessing if it's a good fit for your family. You don't want to feel obligated to say, "Oh yeah, that sounds great. Oh yeah, we're totally in," before you really think about, is this something I can commit to? Because you know that mom in the background who's offering that class is probably doing a fair amount of work to prepare. And so if it's going to work for you, commit to it. If it's not, be honest about your circumstances. And this is kind of the beauty of this relational schooling, is that you get to know each other. You end up talking about, well, let me tell you what's going on in my life right now. Let me tell you some of the struggles my family's having right now. And because of that, then oh, now I know why, they're late all the time. Now I know how I can help them. Maybe I can come alongside them and help them with that burden that they're carrying. So be honest, try to let your yes be yes and your no be no, and then just keep up the communication. However your group or your class has decided to do that. It can be a little heavy. It's not the same as a public school where you put the kid on the bus and they're done. They're gone for 6 hours and you don't think about them. I'm sorry, I don't mean to say it like that, but you know what I mean? You're not involved. You have to communicate and really get to know everybody. Okay, and then let's go back to, unless Michelle, do you have any other pressing questions? If not,
no, but I saw this. That was the one I was hoping we would circle back to. Perfect.
Yeah. All right. So let's be realistic. There's a lot of people who own buildings and companies, and they're not excited about the idea that you want to bring in 15 kids and 4 moms. That makes sense because kids like to break things. Kids are messy. We're all messy. So just to be simple, just think about somebody's home, a bonus room, a basement space, a kitchen table. We have seen kids just pack themselves in. I guess that's like a big no-no now with COVID. But before COVID, we just squeezed everyone in, and boy, do the kids get to know each other, and they get some good laughs out of that because they're squeezed in like sardines. So I would say that's the simplest, is somebody's home, because you don't have so many of the legalities that could potentially be involved. But here's some other ideas: a town hall, a library room in your town that's available. Churches often have good spaces. American Legions, I've only been in a couple, but some of them seem to be a decent size, or you don't even need a big size. Sometimes you just need a couple rooms and a bathroom. A gym. We have had a couple gyms offer us, and I thought we almost took them up on a couple classes being at the gym because we were excited about the kids going and working out together, or signing them up together under a group class, like a fitness instructor, and then be all sweaty and come back to the table and exhausted physically so that they could focus on, like, let's say their math class or whatever, Spanish class, whatever we had going on next. We haven't taken them up on that, but come to find out, some gyms, YMCAs, they have extra rooms and they might be very willing to let you use them. I don't have a lot of experience with these spaces except for churches. And my church has its own policy. And once I found out what that policy was, it's not been too difficult to work within it. And to keep things simple, for example, for my church, I bring in about 20 moms and 80 kids on a Tuesday. I'm the liaison. So anybody who's at the church knows that they can come to me if there's any issues going on. So that's just one way we keep it simple, is you have one person who commits to being that liaison. It doesn't mean they're committed to running the whole show. It just means they're the communicator of that, for that location. There's this issue of insurance, and I can't speak to that, except that I know one time I was a 4-H leader, and 4-H comes with insurance. And when we were considering a particular place to use, those building owners were very pleased that I had that. I don't even remember if we really even ever used it or had to present it, but they were happy, and I was happy that our 4-H group, it was a science group that year, we had some coverage. But I know there's like Amanda Whedon, who's really active on the Granite State Home Educators site. She's got a co-op going in the Rochester area, and she's been working on some insurance. And so that would be a question you could post if your building location owner needs that. But I would just say, it doesn't have to be too complicated if you can find a home to use, and then maybe kids are shuttled by minivan from one home to the another. If that's what you need to do, then that might be overall the best way to do things.
I've got a couple things. So yes, Amanda has been very, very helpful and shared a ton of information. One of the things she mentioned was an insurance place called NCG, National Church. It's ncginsurance.com. I'll put the link in chat. It's a national nonprofit that helps with these sorts of insurance things. They have, I believe they even have tools on their website to help you even determine what the cost would be for what you're doing. But that is one source. The really large co-op in Auburn apparently is able to piggyback on what they do by making it a ministry instead of an educational purpose. So if you want to work through a church, that might be a pathway to making it happen. And another way is if you find an insurance provider that'll cover it, but concerned about the cost, you could try to do a fundraiser to help lower the per child cost on a classroom basis.
I think it's a size thing usually. So, or a numbers game, and that's also involved in the location. So if your town library, which is a public space, is going to let you in once a week for a class, they're probably not going to charge you insurance. So you just kind of have to figure out, like, do I really want to go through that hassle of charging everybody $80 just to get this insurance that we hope we never use? Or can we just meet in my basement? I mean, so the idea of a mom school not being a co-op is that it's simple. It's simpler anyway, administratively. So I saw a question come up in chat that you're actually not dropping your kid off for a particular class. You aren't necessarily staying with your kid, but you're helping with the mom school in some way. And maybe you do drop your kid off because the way that you're helping is that, you're grading papers on the side or something like that. And so you're not, maybe you just are in another room, but it's not a drop off and forget it situation. It's a relational, involved with friendships and wanting everyone to succeed and wanting everyone's kid to succeed. It's definitely not a like, oh, good, I can drop my kid off for 3 hours and I can go to my quick little part-time job. And that's not a mom school. It might be a co-op though. There are a lot of co-ops that have that and want that and can facilitate that, which is fantastic if that's what your need is. So if that is your need, then probably the mom school style is not for you, which is totally fine. For people who came in kind of like after the intro, we really stressed that like your mileage may vary. This might not be the right thing for you, but for homeschooling and needing support, it's one of the easiest things to try because there's no startup costs. It's just you and what you can teach. And if you have to teach it to your kid, you may as well teach it to a couple of friends' kids while you're at it. And then, what can they teach your kid while they're teaching their own kid? And so, yeah, just wanted to address that question.
Libraries,
Absolutely.
you mentioned libraries, they often want to make sure at least one of the adults managing the group is a local resident.
Yeah.
I know
Oh, yeah.
My kids have done that periodically. Granite State Home Educators is a nonprofit, so I'm able to work with a lot of libraries in that way. But, obviously mom schools may not want to go through the rigmarole of creating a nonprofit entity. But
Just be honest, it depends on the library. If you have a nice librarian, you're fine. If you have a stickler, forget about it. So just, know your town. And I used to be a librarian, so I can say these things.
That's funny. Oh, I mentioned earlier something about charging and one of the reasons to not charge. And that can be because some of these locations that you might want to use, they might be legally, like for accounting reasons, they are a nonprofit. And so there was something I read years ago from a CPA who said, co-ops, be careful because those organizations, you could be breaking their rules if someone is using the space as a for-profit thing. Now, if you're a mom school and you're charging $15, for materials at the beginning of the year. That's just for materials. That's different, I would say. But if you're getting to where you're great and you're a great teacher, people are flocking to you. And let's say you could get up to where you're charging like what an online class would be, which maybe is like $500 a class per student. I think at that point, you're getting to like an income, a revenue threshold that could be violating that nonprofit's use of space limitations. So just something to remember there. And in our experience, it's just been better to not have a payment for the labor involved in the teaching. It's better to make other arrangements, including you could even barter. You could say, well, I'm going to take your kid for this. Will you make dinner? I have heard of families doing that for music lessons. I have heard of families, just being really honest and saying, this is a burden for me, but I want to do it. But in exchange, could you do this for me? And in that honesty, you do get to know each other better. And like I said, you grow that relationship.
Yeah, I definitely have seen that. I have a friend who is a brilliant seamstress, and she taught sewing classes for a small group out of her home for like 8 or 10 kids. And one of the moms was an artist and would do an art class in her home, and they weren't charging each other for that exchange. But I think there was some sort of nominal charge for materials and things like that for the other students. So I mean, it really is that kind of flexible arrangement that you work out with whoever you're utilizing.
This is my last slide. And there's really not much here because the answer is yes to all of these except for one.
Oh, wait, hang on. We're still on. So you're invited to grad school.
Oh, here, this one. Can you see the quiz?
Nope.
Oh, let's try again. How about that?
Nope.
Not yet.
There?
No.
There we are.
Oh, there it is. Yay.
Okay.
You got it. You got it.
Maybe everybody would like to read through this. There's 7 questions. The answer is yes to all of them except one. Can you figure out which one? Towards the bottom.
Oh yeah, everyone's muted. So I will say
Okay.
it is number 6.
Yes. Is this the best thing for my family? Or I guess I should have written it as, is this the best thing for everyone? No, the answer is no, it's not. You might be better finding families to work together with and hire a teacher and have a pod school. You might be better off with your family sending your kids to a private school or public school. I've always been a big supporter of school choice and just equipping parents to know what their different options are. There's no guilt or shame or judgment ever needed for anyone for what they choose, but we just really hope that we've equipped you with some ideas and knowledge about what mom school or tribal school, whoever you want to call it, is like. And I think Meg and I are very willing to give you ideas if you're looking to start one. Do we have any other questions, Michelle?
No, we've been doing a really awesome job keeping up with them as they've been coming in.
Cool.
So
I did want to say one last thing that I wanted to say was, as I've seen kind of the end of the school year, people have been making decisions for the upcoming fall. There were a lot of sort of one-time homeschoolers, like I'm just homeschooling for this 1 year because I have to because COVID, who really shocking themselves liked it and are still homeschooling. And so there's a lot of like, I need a co-op, help, I'm all alone. And there are, let's see, I think like 2 new co-ops like created in my area like in the last month. So, but a lot of co-ops are full. A lot of groups are full. Our group is full, which is sad because now you know how awesome we are and you want to join us, but you can't, sorry. But it just speaks to the need of it. And I just really wanted to encourage all of you, just think about starting one. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be perfect. It can be one class with 2 other families. And you might just totally have a toddler and you cannot do that That is fine. Go with God. We love you and your toddler. This is not your year. But for all of the rest of you, you should think about that, because the return on investment, the ROI that was on that last slide, oh, you guys, it's so good. It's so good to build relationships, to overcome whatever you think your weaknesses are, or maybe you don't know them yet, but as you homeschool, you will, which is so great because we all are going to grow. But starting a mom school, even if it's just a tiny, small, single class, might be the thing that helps you and your kids or your husband or your mother-in-law love homeschooling. This might be the thing for you. And if you try it and you hate it, don't do it next year, just to be like, oh yeah, that wasn't for me, because you're going to find what is for you. But sometimes you need to try a bunch of things. And if it doesn't work, that's not a failure. That just means that it didn't work for your family. But it doesn't mean that, mom schools are bad or inherently evil. It just doesn't work for you. It's totally fine. So I just want to empower women to go for it, to do the hard work and see what kind of awesome year that you might have.
Awesome. And as you guys use the example of taking online classes together. So even if you are not a science teacher, or math kind of makes you freeze and panic, or the idea of teaching a foreign language is just mind-boggling, you don't have to be the expert. You can still utilize these outside sources, but do it together so that your kid has community and a study group with some people also interested in learning that same thing. So there are lots of variations on this theme that make it very doable. And you don't have to be the brilliant teacher on these subjects if you can't find somebody or don't find the right curriculum, but you want to do this. So, I think there's just a ton of possibilities this way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and not all mom schools have to be academic either. You can have a mom school that gets together for social reasons, for tabletop gaming and, and crafts. Because that's what you need. It's what you need and what you want to teach, and you get other people to do with you. And then the next year you do something different, whatever you need. So you're not restricted to our slides, no matter how awesome they are. do your own thing, but you can do it. You can homeschool. It's gonna be fantastic. Yeah.
Awesome. I love your pep talk, Meg. Thank you.
Well, we all need it. We're all thinking like, oh no, Labor Day is coming. And no matter how many pretty things we just ordered from Amazon, it's still coming, and we're gonna have to use those pretty things. And you can get the wobbles. Let me tell you, the first day of school, you're like, and then you totally got it by Thanksgiving, and you go into the holidays with good things to tell the family, and it's gonna be fine. But yeah, consider mom school. That's all.
And then frankly, I think this is a community not just for our kids, but for us.
Yeah.
And we're all going to have difficult days. Not every day in homeschooling is a perfect 10. We have struggles. The kids don't cooperate. We barely get out of pajamas, and there are days that are just a struggle. And this builds community for us.
Yeah.
And somebody who's going to know what these struggles are, totally relates to them, and can be that listening ear, the shoulder to cry on, and somebody to say, hey, we can get through this together.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also a safe place to celebrate without jealousy or comparison. Like, someone's kid gets into a sweet scholarship, you like rejoice because you had that kid in 7th grade and you knew how hard they worked for that thing. It's just good. It's really good to celebrate other people and to help them when you get that text like, you guys, I cannot even, everyone was sick this weekend and need to meet. Then you step up for your friends. So yeah, it's all good.
That's keeping it real. I mean, it is. It's real. Well, we don't have any final questions, but I really want to thank you both, Catie and Meg. This has been phenomenal. This is so empowering, and the timing really couldn't be any more perfect. I think families are reluctant, they're scared. A lot of us have been conditioned to defer to the authority figures, the professionals, when it comes to our kids' education. But, you know, as parents, we make these decisions all the time for our kids, what they're going to eat, where they're going to live, what kind of health things they're going to be, what's important to our family. So why not extend that to their education too?
Mm-hmm.
And you know and love your kids best, everybody. You know what's important. You know what their learning needs are and their goals. And mom schooling is a way to bring that into a community setting where you're working for common goals and helping each other. No, you don't have to do mom schooling. It is one of the many wonderful variations on homeschooling, but it really is that way to bring community to it, that, you know, the idea that you're always by yourself and isolated in your own home all day, every day is just not what it's like for many of us. So I wanted to thank you both for sharing your years of wisdom and knowledge of all of this. I am so jealous. I wish I had known about this stuff when my kids were younger and known you guys then. Oh my goodness, I wish. But, you know, so I'm very appreciative that you've done this for us tonight. This is just phenomenal. Thank you so much, ladies. This has been,
Thank you.
I've wanted to do this for a year. So
Thank you, Michelle, for making this happen.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and I'm sorry, what was that, Meg?
Oh, yeah, no, I was going to say that, like, probably on Granite State Home Educators, you'll probably have a, hey, if you missed it, I'll try to, like, find that in the next couple of days. If anybody here, like, comes up with a question after the Zoom is closed, go ahead and post it there, and Catie and I'll try to hop on and just field those if they come.
Awesomeness. Thank you so much, Meg. It's a way to go for follow-up. Thank you. Yes, I will be, this has been recorded. I will put this on our YouTube, our website, our social media, into our blog. It's perfect timing. It'll go in our newsletter editions. So there'll be a lot of opportunities for people to listen in or join if they weren't able to attend tonight, but it'll be a really great resource for oodles and oodles of more people, even beyond this evening with us. So thank you, everybody. Thank you to all our guests. This has been fabulous. Gosh, what a fabulous evening. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thanks.